critical for any venture success. As an HR professional, it is up to the employees to offer the kind of employee value proposition that makes your company the place to be. Now, what is EVP and how it is beneficial? We will find that in today's webinar, the HR and employer proposition value proposition. Before starting, we are glad to inform you that there will be certificate for participation, which is free, and it had to be. We will distribute all this certificate at the end of the webinar to your registered email ID. Thank you once again for giving us time and being a part of this webinar. Now, I would like to request everyone to mute the mic and ask all the questions or make any comment in the Q&A box, which you can see below or in the bottom of the screen, so that it doesn't disturb the course of the webinar. You can also raise your hand if you have any kind of queries. We will try to reach and ask the questions from their end. I would also like to take your attention to the short courses which are related to the topic, which will help to understand this webinar. They are Executive Diploma in Strategic Leadership and HR Practice in Organization, Diploma in International Human Resource Management, Basics in Human Resource Management, Mastering in Human Resource Management, Mastering in IHRM, Organization and Recruitment, Essential in International and Human Resource Management. Now, I would like to welcome our esteemed panelist, Mr. Arvind Warrior, accomplished HR leader with over 18 years of experience with multiple sectors, including IT, manufacturing, and pharmaceutical. As the lead of people and culture at Volvo India, he has played a pivotal role in managing a mission critical project and providing strategic insight to business operations. A passionate coach, a motivational speaker, Arvind has also served as an advisory member for leading the business school across India, specializing in HR, talent management, and leadership development. Welcome, sir, and over to you. You can start this session. Thank you.
Sure. So thank you very much, Agya. You've been so kind for the fantastic intro. So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, all my leaders, dreamers, and doers who are part of this session. It's a great, humble, and honoring kind of experience which I have before I start. And I actually use one word which is very important, which we'll discuss again. So first question actually I wanted to ask is basically, you can also put it in your chat, which we'll definitely have, is what are your set of expectations from this session? Anyone, if you want, you can also talk, and because I think this is not going to be a monologue, this is going to be a dialogue also. Wherever you have any questions, please pause me. As Argya said, we would like to put it in the end or towards the mid also, but then wherever you want to ask questions, if it is not making sense also, you should raise your hands. If you have some feedbacks, please feel free, because I firmly believe the world needs experience, and what we are doing is basically called experiential learning also. So most important thing is, this is something which we are going to discuss today. The important aspect is employment value proposition, employer value proposition, or is it employer value proposition or experience value proposition? And we purposefully had started like this, called the HR and the employer value proposition. But the most important thing is, again, I'll show this. The most important aspect is, we are living in the world of experience. We are HR leaders. And at the end, HR is all about humility and respect. HR. That means there's a huge widening perspective to bring two elements, feelings and emotions. And when you have feelings and emotions, you look up to something called experience. My dear leaders, we don't go to a Hyatt, we don't go to a fantastic, we don't buy high-end quality stuff just because it's a brand. The most important aspect is, you go to all these Hyatts and Marriotts of the world, or maybe buying the Louis Vuittons or anything for that matter. I'm just quoting some names, some brands, or any kind of things, including, I would say, your phone, which is like the mobile phones and Apples of the world. The question to all my leaders is, why do we buy it? Because everything has a connecting story to it. Everything has got a connecting dots. The most important thing is, You get something when you buy it. That's called the value proposition. Again, the question to all my leaders is, why are you attending the session? There's a value proposition in any kind of connection. What is that I
Well,
get?
one of them has answered Alucine contact. Her expectation or his expectation is to attract the best talent from the
Superb.
limited pool of experienced and qualified people.
Thank you. You nailed it right. So I don't think I'll be torturing you more than the expected time. I think I can complete it. I think she has rightly nailed it. The overall idea is to understand how do you get the best talent inside the organization. I think you have cut shorted my topic. Thank you very much for that. But yeah, I'll just continue. So most important thing is uh, in this world, what is happening is any kind of connection, especially we are in the world of HR. So between the organization, there is something called employer. This one, there is an employment contract, or there's a connect through the work environment, and the work culture. You look at any kind of contracts or any kind of this one relationship between the organization and the employee. The connecting block happens to be three things: the work, which comes in the form of job; third, second, in terms of the work environment, most important, and the work culture. I think these three, if we understand, the equation becomes very easy. Now, the most important topic is then value proposition is something which is given and taken. It's rest assured. But shouldn't we then look at something called an experience of value proposition? And that's one reason I didn't put this there. Because gone are those days when you look at the rewards, you look for some, what do you say, look for that organization brand and all those things. The coming of the millennials, Generation Z, or whatnot you call them, they're looking for something called experience. And if their experience is not there, as I think one of the participants rightly mentioned, she was very right. If the whole world, the talented, great minds, including all of them in the session, we all are looking for something called an experience. And experience is the most important thing which all my leaders in this session should start re-engineering. So the whole session is, how do we re-engineer? That's the most important question which we should be looking at when you're doing this kind of session. But do you want me to take the question now, or probably during after I complete few slides, I'll definitely come back to that. So if someone is asking you something called EVP, EVP does not restrict to an HR. Including your product life cycle, you can bring this in form of something called a customer journey, or your design thinking, or in terms of touch points and other kind of things. So the whole idea is, how can I at any touch point, and for the HR field, the first touch point is, how do you really showcase that your organization is the best place to work, the great place to work survey, or whatever you do it. That's where the whole thing starts. What will make my organization connect to an employee or an outsider? That's a touch point. And if that reason of being is there in terms of the experience, people will love to work it. It's not earlier like a brand. Someone joins X kind of organizations not just because of the brand. They feel valued. They feel cared. There's an experience equation in the whole connection. And that is what we would be dwelling upon in the whole conversation. Because most important thing is, I'm talking to leaders, dreamers, and doers. And most important, I think, as RK rightly said, expectation setting is very important. And if the expectation is set, that becomes a starting point to re-engineer our experience. In our lives, whenever I go for any discussions or sessions, I always ask, what is the set of expectations? Because when you have the right set of expectations, it's very easy to fine-tune that. Because if the right expectation is there, you can either go up the experience curve or you can go down. And it's a learning. It's an improvisation also. But not having expectation, it's a problem. So when you go to all these big hotels or whatever, even you buy a normal pen, there is a set of expectations attached to it. And that expectations give way to feelings, experience, and emotions. Feeling, experience, and emotions. And that's what we would like to basically try to see how you can really rework on these three parts of the whole equation or the story. Going by the definition, set of attributes perceived by the labor market or employees as they value gained from the working at an organization. It's as simple as that. I work for X organization. What is there for me? What is there for me when I am getting into an employment contract with you, or setting the relationship in terms of something called the job and work? Leaders, most important, when you work, there are three things which comes up. There's a value, there's an impact, and there's a contribution. That's a magic. Any relationship or anything kind of work with an organization, you always see value in it. You generate an impact to the so-called stakeholders, deliverable impact or impactful deliverables, and then there's a contribution. The work actually contributes to the organization's success or to the career of an employee who's working for you. And that's where this set of attributes of the experience value proposition is what something this whole session is all about. So if someone is working, what is that value I gain by working for you? That's the most important aspect. From an HR utility point, identify or increase the factors which can give way to increasing the experience piece. Believe me, my dear leaders, nowhere we look at something called satisfaction anymore. No one also looks at the engagement piece anymore. The world has moved to the experience, and we as leaders fine-tune experience through all kind of touch points. Recruitment, onboarding, you have development, you have engagement. Wherever the touch points is happening, the employee, the manager, the HR, how do you see that person really feels it? Emotionally, he gets blended into the organization. And that's where HR utility goes up. Enhance and focus improves, as rightly said by one of the great participants. When you have right sort of expectation set, that really triggers or leverages the so-called experience. If that is done, you don't have to do more around the attraction part. You don't have to do more around development piece. You don't have to do more around the motivation piece. You don't have to do more around the retention piece. ADMR, attraction, development, motivation, and retention. The question is, I'm sure all of you would have at least read about one of the fantastic books called Work Rules from Laszlo Block, who was a CHRO for Google. What he was saying is, we spend a lot of time in ensuring the talent acquisition or the so-called space of attraction and hiring. They spend a lot of time. Google, that's why I'm sure some of you would have heard 9 rounds of interviews and all those things. Why the question? And I literally wanted to understand why this is there. So the answer is there in the book, which says, when you have the right talent inside the organization, we don't have to spend on development, because the experience given us, we need great minds who can learn, unlearn, and relearn, who can upskill, reskill, and cross-skill. So if that set of expectations are set, the experience bar only goes up. So you don't have to do anything more around development. You don't have to do anything around the motivation, because the environment itself creates that, so that the person gets a great experience, not good experience. Good is the enemy of great. So when you're looking at experience bar, it's all about greatness. Whoever touches your organization, whoever touches up your so-called leaders or managers, they give him or her a great experience, not a good experience. Now, absolutely yes. Makes sense? This is something the whole world is looking for. It's the experience value proposition which we are talking about. The emotional response and attributes, again, when you join an organization. First thing first, we'll definitely dwell more into this. Deeper connections, the relationship at the level of work environment, and the culture. You have a work, but you see your manager coming and giving you more accountability and thought process. He is not here to just see that you have got an outcome. He also ensures your career also gets shaped. The relationship is not transactional, it is transformational. Radical flexibility, autonomy, and empowerment at work. We don't speak, we don't put a lot of votes, but we give the so-called generations of any kind a lot of flexibility in terms of autonomy and empowerment, where they start taking up challenges, tasks, and they start delivering impact. Shared purpose. If you happen to see the whole world right now, if you happen to ask generations Z and millennials, they say, I don't see the purpose in their organization. I don't see that kind of vision or the clarity from the leader. Then why should I join them? Very important. In an employment value, experience value proposition, they would like to see whether the person or the leader himself has got the clarity. And this is where a lot of sessions or a lot of training or a lot of coaching has to be done for managers, because if managers don't exhibit it, probably the connect itself goes down. Now, the most important thing after COVID, most of the organizations, if you happen to see, they ask whether you have a lot of physical gym and other things in your organization. I just got it only a small thing called gym. There are a lot of people who, at least candidates, asking, I mean, do you have really kind of employee assistance program, employee resource kind of programs? Why? I am a person, I have come from COVID, I might have some kind of depressions and other kind of things also. Is there anything which I can take care of? I mean, something which is extended by the organizations. When I say this, yes, the person understands. Earlier, the whole thing was around salary, salary, salary. Now you look at something called talent, rewards, and recognition. People are looking forward for something called work-life balance, holistic health and wellness from the so-called personal, emotional, financial kind of aspects. It's a holistic thing. Next, the most important, why should I work for you? When I work for you, you as a leader or you as an organization give me a lot of opportunities to exhibit my so-called learning, to showcase whatever I've learned, I can put it into practice. There's this whole room for my learning and development. If you happen to see a lot of readings which is coming up from the World Economic Councils or the McKinsey's of the world or anyone, they have been saying that nowadays, across the generations, the most important value proposition is whether the organization or the role which I take up, is it giving me a space to literally develop, move my thoughts, really give me a lot of challenging opportunities. If it is not there, or if I'm going to get into the so-called monotonous kind of thing, I don't want to join that organization. I don't want to work for that kind of manager. Is the manager okay to give me something called, is the manager okay in terms of job crafting? All those words are something which is really popping up in the world of experience value proposition. Earlier, the past view of the so-called employment value proposition was around people, work, opportunity, reward, and organization. It's still the same, but when we go up the next set of presentations, you will see the whole thing has changed. People, as you saw in the previous slide, deeper connections. Work is where I literally feel valued and cared. Whether my so-called contributions has been appreciated, whether my so-called contributions have been valued, whether my so-called contributions have been recognized, whether my so-called contributions have been considered. That's when I understand I'm connecting the forest with the trees. Most of the times, when you ask the managers themselves, they don't know the expectations. In the world of experience value proposition, expectations, if it is rightly set, the experience only goes up. It doesn't come down. Opportunities to learn, grow, and move up the ladder. And moving up doesn't always mean horizontal. It can be vertical. Anyways, that is what people are looking for. There's a fantastic book, Swiggly Careers, and that's a TED Talk also. Probably you can just look at that. That's what people want to see it. Whether how can it really shape up my career? Can it really make me think? Can it really intellectually stimulate me to do great things in life? That's something which earlier past employment value proposition is all about. And finally, the rewards and the brand called organization. So earlier, if you look at, everything was around the employees and about now, if you look at, everything is around more specific. I think there's a small this one, that's okay. But now, if you look at, earlier it was broad in terms of people, work, opportunity, rewards, and organization. But going by the previous, this is where things really take a shape, where the relationship is strong, not purely with the work, but the manager, where there is a lot of room for empowerment. There is a lot of room for taking up challenging things, where I can see the forest and connect with the trees. Holistic well-being, not physical well-being. And holistic well-being after COVID has really, really shaped up. And that's one of the new things which is part of the experience value proposition, which we'll speak. Personal growth in terms of my learning and other this one. So that means the new experience value proposition, which we are talking about, revolves around the employees, which is to do with their so-called feelings and emotions, designed to give experience in every point which they touch, starting recruitment till the end. Till the end. You cannot say that exit is done, it's closed. No. Can I do something called alumni? Can I still connect with him or her? If he or she wants to come back, if he or she wants to refer, all those small things. So that means if you happen to see the experience value proposition, the whole idea is how do you dissect the entire employee life cycle, and at every process try to find out what exactly can lead to great experience, so that it's a lifelong relationship with the employee, even if he leaves the organization. That's the most important thing. Easy to understand. Earlier, it was just, as I said, work, organization, relation, your opportunity and other things. But if you happen to see now that since our millennials are also entering the workforce, there's a huge requirement for us to really dissect the employee life cycle. Because for them, why I'm talking about millennials and generations, for them, the so-called instant gratification and many things are there. They need feedback. They need expectations to be set right day one. There's nothing called over 30 days or 60 days. Once I get into the organization, it will be done. No, it's instantaneous. That's what they're looking for. Millennials have joined. Digitization has become one of the important things. Equal rights. The most important thing is DEIB. Along with the holistic well-being, DEIB is also equally important. Diversity, equity, and the most important plus, inclusiveness and belongingness. Most of our organizations stop at DE or DEI. Belongingness is where the experience starts. My manager listens to me. My manager cares for me. My manager recognizes me. And that's what the whole thing is moving towards. And if we look at the next level of the experience is, as I rightly said, I was just stating as in terms of making wellness part of the whole thing. Most of the people I've seen, most of the leaders craft the whole thing around these 5 things. But the new generation or the new workforce, what they need is wellness at work. And this is not a joke. Wellness is some of the important things, because when I work, is there anything called stress and burnout, which is happening, which is literally making me not engaged or not giving an experience? All those things is something which all my leaders should be looking forward for. Now, something very interesting. Earlier, you had something called work and life. Now, if you look at the so-called, I would use this word called work-life integration. Work has got into this one. So it becomes WLB, the work-life balance has to be maintained. And that's one reason you have holistic well-being coming into picture. And that's one reason I wanted to show this slide also. Earlier, you could say that, okay, after say this many hours, you can do it. What COVID has done is the work is also introduced into our life. So because of that, you see mental agony, a lot of things coming up. So keeping that into this one, all employee value propositions or experience value propositions should be based on increasing the so-called wellness piece. You can give someone great work, you can give learning opportunities. What about the wellness? Is my manager good in terms of listening, in terms of caring, in terms of giving me timely feedback, in terms of giving me coaching? Small things matter. And as HR leaders, we should be putting a lot of effort in really making the managers think whether the people are really being given that kind of care. I would request all my leaders, if time permits, there's a fantastic, phenomenal book from McKinsey called The Power to the Middle. Why I'm saying this is because if you happen to see, these things are happening on the ground. Some of the great organizations demonstrate it. And that's where nowadays you cannot have saying that wellness, I don't want to do it. So as part of your total rewards or your so-called salary or compensation kind of this one, even people have started requesting it. And great organizations say that we care for your wellness, including your insurance to whatnot. So that is also something which has to be factored when you're giving out your experience value proposition. Now, what has happened in the whole thing? Earlier, everything around employees, everything around the experience and the features which they get. Correct? If you happen to see anything around the organization, work and all those things. But now what has changed is, earlier, workers used to come, including any kind of industries or companies we are talking about, it's just workers used to come. But now, if you have to give someone an experience, you want to make him or her part of the family. That's where the people aspect, the culture aspect, the so-called workforce aspects comes into this one. As I said in my previous slide, work was separate. There was some life, but COVID said, no, since you're at home, life, the work also gets introduced into your personal space also. And most important, this is where experience has to be crafted. Third, the most important. Earlier, it was like the salary or the job had these set of features. Now we are not going to say that. We are saying emotionally and so-called experience-wise how I can connect and blend the person to the whole of organization and the environment. Very important shift from workers to people, work to life, and features to feelings, emotions. Very important. So, what does new experience value proposition look like? Again, earlier you had this. Now it's an emotional response. I'm sure you all can take a snapshot of this. As earlier said, it was labor market where it was around the perceptions. When I join an organization, what will I get? Now, when I join an organization, what is the experience? What is the feeling? What is the emotion the whole organization is going to give me? Because it's not 1 week, 2 weeks, or 3 months. It's a lifelong relationship which you're looking at when you're looking at the employee life cycle. From the start till the end, because there is no end, because even the employee, I don't know how many of you would definitely agree to me, alumni network has really started up. Boomerang employees, people who have left, they would like to come back. So all those things are because of the subtle thing called experience. And that's why the human deal, which is again from Gartner, is something which I'm going to speak. We have to literally put in a lot of effort to understand the attributes around that. No more it is just a connect. No more it is a feature. It's more about feeling. It's more about experience. Is more about emotions. And that's what we should be working on. How does the whole thing or the human deal human deal architecture or framework work? I feel understood, deeper connections, my relationship with my boss. He is able to listen, he is able to observe, he's giving me something, a space for my voice. Radical flexibility, not saying that okay, everything is flexible and then finally he gets questioned. Autonomy based on trust, autonomy based on empowerment. And these are no more words now, something which people are looking forward. Because if the flexibility is not there, if you say, okay, we have flexibility in working from home or anywhere, and again, you get questions. Because if you happen to see everything starts well, but most important thing is openness and trust. That's when some of the managers and organizations make the difference. Personal growth. I feel valued for whatever I do in terms of when I come there, even through my words, action, and thought, my manager literally looks up to that. He gives me a space where I can do my best. And millennials look for this. Or for that matter, any generation or workforce would like to see that my manager or leader is giving me a space where I can literally contribute and succeed. Caring, most important. We've been saying about holistic well-being, and that's what is very important, where I feel both mentally and physically I'm present at the organization. Physically, if it is there, the impact is going to be only for less time. Mentally is most important. And this is where the whole of work, the work environment, and the work culture plays a lot of importance. If the work is not intellectually stimulating and challenging, person takes a back step. If the work environment where I work with my colleagues, they don't support, there is a lot of cynicism, a lot of distrust, a lot of all those things, that also decreases my experience, that indirectly decreases my intrinsic motivation, that decreases my satisfaction in everything, whatever I'm doing. Next, the culture which is set, walk the talk, passion, purpose, whatever it is, customer intimacy, all those things is something which is being shown by my leader. My leader demonstrates on the ground. That is role modeling. So if those things are missing, the work environment, and the work culture, the holistic well-being never happens. The most important, I feel invested in terms of my ideas. I can connect the forest to the trees and trees to the forest. I am also a small person who is contributing to the bigger cause. That excites me. I don't know how many of you have seen, there's a fantastic company. I'm not able to recollect, unfortunately. Moonshots. There is a company called X Moonshots. It's again another spin-off of Google. The whole thing is one of the when I went for one of the sessions, they were saying the another purpose which they have is from that organization is to clean the dirt from ocean. see the impact. Cleaning the dirt from the ocean, the impact is huge. Then the person also feels I am also making a small impact in the whole scheme of things, and that's very important. So again, I feel understood, deeper connections. I feel autonomous, empowered, where I can contribute, which is a radical flexibility in terms of thoughts, personal growth in terms of my value in terms of my learning and growth, which I demonstrate in my job. Holistic, this one in terms of the care aspect, investing in the bigger scheme of things or seeing the bigger picture. So this is the comparison. Earlier it was employment value proposition. Now it's a human deal kind of this one. And this is what is something which I would request all my leaders to look into. And then we can have more questions around this soon after the session. Deeper connections is not just work, but it's beyond that. When my manager takes care of me, cares for me, values and all those things for whatever I contribute. Work, not just work because it is part of the whole job, but where I get space to think, where I can question, where I can challenge. Very important. Autonomy and only happens through trust and openness. And I'm sure two important aspects which I wanted to tell you all, have a lot of sessions around the power of vulnerability. Second, around the so-called psychological safety. Third, around, I said two, but then one more thing is around the growth mindset. Growth mindset is where we both, me and my employee, or the manager and the employee together grows. Whereas like I grow in terms of my learning. There is nothing called a fixed mindset, or there is nothing called a prevention mindset. It's all promotion and growth. Number one. Number two, the whole organization environment and culture is conducive to any kind of things I'd say. It is not that I'll be punished for saying something. If I ask questions, if I ask anything which I don't know, company would appreciate that. If I make mistakes, company would say, okay, you have done it, fine. It's a mistake which it happens in the due course. But when those things happen, the psychological safety indirectly or directly leads to trust and openness and collaboration, OTC. Next, in terms of opportunity, I am there. My work itself is giving me a lot of challenges. It is giving me something called intellectual stimulation, and my manager is also equally facilitating that. Super. You would have seen some of the managers becoming coaches. Nowadays, we have stopped saying that performance management system. We say performance coaching. That's where the opportunity piece works. Rewards, just money, just a compensation or the benefits? No, it's beyond that. Can I give more so that he is holistically coming to an organization and contributing to the organization success? Organization, earlier it was just around the brand. Now it's like, what does the brand serve? Why should I join X organization? Whether the purpose is big. And if you happen to ask the millennials, they also would like to know whether the organization is also taking care of the corporate social responsibility. I actually happen to do one of my research. I still see the students also asking if the organization, it doesn't have the CSR angle, I don't want to join it. That also says people value something called values and ethics. So my dear leaders, everything is around the deeper connections, radical flexibility, personal growth, holistic well-being, and the shared purpose of seeing something big. Again, I thought I'll reinforce this slide. And this is where all my leaders should put in a lot of effort from today in terms of designing your experience value proposition, which is something seen by the outsiders. The question is, why should I work for X organization? You have to craft the messages very clearly anytime through your communication medium around the deeper connection, the flexibility what we offer, the growth we have, the holistic well-being of the individual who is joining our organization. And last but not the least, why you should join our organization, because our organization does something big, which is totally different. And this separates, the shared purpose again separates great from good. Great from good, because good is the enemy of great. And that's very important. Yes, quite an easy stuff. As logical great minds who are being part of the session, I'm sure this is an easy thing which you all can relate to. It should be appealing. It should really make sense. Not because you have to write something, you're doing it. It should have that power. That makes a difference. What is that will make a difference is something called appealing. Authentic. based on organization's purpose, based on organization's capabilities, based on organization's strengths. Some other organizations, I don't want to name it, and I would request all my leaders to just type capitalizing on capabilities article from Dave Ulrich. He has stated that article about 11 capabilities. It's worth a read. If I know my capability, I should explicitly mention that in the so-called experience value proposition. Believe me, my dealer leaders, your ex company is really good in innovation, but if your experience says that, okay, you join us because we are very good in terms of cutting cost, or we are good in terms of maximizing profit, there's an alignment issue in terms of the thought. The whole world is perceiving you as an innovation, and then you say that no, we are not innovators per se, but we are good in terms of customer satisfaction, all those things. That also needs to be evaluated. So most important, authenticity is something which is being seen, heard by the so-called outer world. So that has to be really looked into. Relevant, authenticity and relevance, if you happen to see, it's very much connected. Because if it's not aligned with the organization strategy of what to be next, not what to be done next, or what is the future, then people might not be able to connect it. Authenticity and relevance of the experience value proposition is where the logical mind starts connecting. Why should I join? Does this company really believe in innovation? Does this believe in the so-called customer satisfaction? All those things is something which gets questioned in the relevance as well as authenticity part. Differentiated, I don't have to tell you. Again, USP, unique selling proposition, which is again in tune with the relevance and authenticity. If someone says you're good in innovation, you really stand out in terms of innovation. If someone says customer satisfaction is your capability, you really stand out. And I must say, I'm sure everyone would have everyone knows about what Amazon is, right? Amazon is Amazon. They don't have anything else. They only say that we are the earth's most customer centric organization. So that differentiates them. So everyone need not copy each other, but when you dwell more into your authenticity or your capability or understanding your strengths, then those four things really need to be looked upon, whether it's really appealing, whether it is realistic and relevant, and something which is authentic. Authenticity cannot be fooled. It comes out. And something which really sets you apart from the crowd, which is differentiation also. Fine. So fine, coming to an end. So yeah, so most important, the question part, how do you craft it? How do you really craft this magic? The most important thing is, how do you really craft the experience value proposition? First and foremost, I'm going to spend little time here. It's not one time kind of thing. This is where all my leaders, HR, and cross-functional teams, marketing, communications, operations, delivery, anything, the strategy office or whatever you have, you all come. And this is not HR's job. Let me make it very clear. It is an organization's thing which we are going to put it into this one. Everyone has to sit and first and foremost understand why we are doing it. Because if the why is not right, probably the what and how can get corrupted. The investment should be mostly around why we are doing it. So the first simple exercise would be a blank white sheet of paper where all my leaders would sit and ask, how is the world perceiving me or our organization as a leader? Because this thing, if you want experience value proposition, you can even apply it in our own life also. But the starting point is, before you craft and design anything, how is the world perceiving us? And this is where all my leaders should definitely go and do a lot of focus group discussions, do a lot of surveys, do a lot of feedbacks from our internal employees and external employees. Because when you start listening, then you will understand this is how the world is perceiving me. Unless and until we know the reality, we should not jump into something, because your competitors or your own, anyone for that matter, would be already having an EVP, but it should not be like, okay, if they are doing it, let me also do it. The question is, why? Is it really important? If not, let's not do it. Because if the why is not right, the what and how doesn't come into picture. Number one. So please start making a big white sheet of paper. It's a white space thinking, understanding, asking a lot of questions around the whole crafting business. Why is it required? And what exactly is the goal? Or only one thing. What is it trying to achieve? What is the aim? What is the purpose? Because these things are not big things, because if you understand, if this is there, if you understand, it's easy to make others also understand. And this is where my humble request is, please do a lot of focus group discussions at different segments, different target groups, because generations perceptions vary, generations experience vary. So if we don't understand that, we'll not be able to craft. And one question you all can ask me is, can we have the same set of experience value proposition? We cannot. But when you get insights after doing an FGD or doing interviews, or after doing this research, the surveys and other things and feedbacks, you almost get to know this is what world is perceiving me and this is what I want to achieve. Then it becomes very easy for you to reach that target. Most important, how do you communicate once it's designed? Now, communication is one piece. Most important, when you do a focus group discussion also, please have the objective very clear and ensure the communication is very clear. What exactly are we trying to achieve? Most of the times, the person doesn't know why HR has come and asked me this kind of question, because it's all to do with the re-engineering effort. So that way, if it is not rightly done, outcome is going to fail. Gather data, as I said, it's purely involved in a lot of feedback, research, focus group discussions, surveys. And this is where different segmentation and targeting has to be done. Most of the times what we do is, because it has come from it has come as a one tick mark exercise, we only ensure that some people are coming. No. Then you ensure, you ask a lot of people, what do you think about the organization? What do you think main capability of my organization is? What do you think the world is perceiving us as? Once you understand that, you will get series of attributes which the world is looking for, or world perceives you as. Once that is done, you also need to understand the perception about internal employees also, because that is where you will see a lot of mismatch, because these people are seeing the climate and the culture inside. The outside perceptions can also be right or wrong because they are not part of the organizations. Once you do that, you start understanding the alignment piece. Where is that gap which is coming up? Understand the core things which actually is required to set the picture straight. Then once you understand that, as rightly said by one of the participants leaders, most important is, then you understand what would it take to excite the talent from outside. And then once you understand that, you start reframing or redesigning the employee value, experience value proposition components. That's very important. Again, to do with this one, which we discussed a few minutes back. Connections, flexibility. Because if my internal employees, because outside world would perceive, there is a lot of workforce, this one, work-life balance, but internally people feel, okay, no, it can be better. Then there's a scope, because reality versus expectations is something which you as leaders would be correcting. And that's why this is very important. Fine, you refine it. Finally, the most important thing, EVP or experience value proposition is not an end. It's a journey by itself, because the touch points or the customer journey never stops. Year on year, not month on month per se, at least quarter or 6 months basis, you should definitely do this exercise to understand how is the world perceiving us. And this you can also apply in our own life, because I personally believe if things cannot be applied, then we are actually in a wrong space. So yeah, this is also equally important. Now I'll stop. Yes, very important slide. Finally, what happens is, why should the whole thing should be done? Once it's done very nicely, you have something called NPS. If you just type one of the best articles from Bain and Company called "One Number You Must Grow," that tells you something called Net Promoter Score, NPS. Promoters minus detractors. I don't know how many of you have experienced this. Netflix, Apple, Ubers of the world, they don't ask you so many questions. Of course, yes, they'll definitely ask. But the first question is whether you will promote my organization to other organization, or whether you will promote my product to someone else. That always tells me whether my promoter score is better or not. So EVP or experience value proposition, if rightly done, helps us in increasing the promoter score. And promoter score is not just because you need to score well in that. It also says that the brand is perceived positive. Driving performance. If you have or exhibited the holistic kind of this one, 5 things which we spoke, definitely the performance or the productivity index should be high. It cannot come down. satisfaction is high, engagement is high, I feel attached, I get involved, and there's a great set of experience coming up. And if all these things are there, I am committed to the organization. Involvement, engagement, attachment is towards the work. Commitments, loyalty towards the so-called organization. And if that is there, experience is skyrocketing, nothing less. Discretionary effort or intent to stay. Even if the competitor is saying more, I'll also think the work environment and the culture is simply great here. Why should I just go and try something else in the other set of company? Intent to stay or the retention efforts need not be worked upon by an HR or a leader if you have the right set of experience value proposition in place. Earlier, we never used to have this as one of the impactful thing, but now maximizing wellness is very important. Not physical alone, mental plus physical. Last but not the least, as I said, if your commitment and loyalty is more, actually, if your engagement is more, you feel committed. Sorry, if your engagement is more, you're attached and involved, automatically loyalty only goes up because your commitment to the organization is more. Your engagement to the work or job is more. So that directly gives to the loyalty. Fine. So with this, I'll stop. I'm open to questions, thoughts, insights, and feedbacks.
Thank you, Arvind sir. So we have couple of questions and are relevant. So the first question is I means there is some short form. Why the CC don't work? I don't know what is CC here.
Customer, I don't know.
Yeah.
Are you starting from the beginning or okay? Good
No,
presentation.
in the first two is the expectation that you have started when you started the webinar, and from the
Thank
third
you.
it's the question.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
I can read the questions out and you
Sure.
can
Thank you, Arya.
see. So how do the doctrine HR came into life, and what was the reason that brought HR into existence?
Can you just repeat? Maybe my bad. I didn't
Yeah.
listen.
So how do the doctrine HR came into life, and what was the reason that brought HR into existence?
Okay, so how did this doctrine of HR came in, or how did the HR come into
Yeah,
existence? Is a question. Okay,
existence.
fantastic question. I think if you happen to see the whole scenario of human resources, earlier days, from the days of Fayol or maybe Taylor and all those things, it was purely based on the numbers, or you only see the so-called person as a resource. Now we are looking at something called the human element, because at the end, if someone has to deliver productivity and performance, and I am sure everyone would also understand the industrial revolution and all those things, and where the most important thing is the rights of the people, because if someone is getting stressed and burnout and suppressed, you will not be able to perform. And at the end, we are more than the so-called machines. I think these are the few influential factors which really led to the human element movement. You had industrial relations, you had personal relations coming into picture, but the real touch point happened where they literally saw whether the person is really engaged at work, whether the person is really doing discretionary effort. Third, whether the whole element is brought into the organization. I'll repeat, whether the whole of self of the person is coming into an organization. Otherwise, physical is there, mental is somewhere, we don't bring in performance or delivery. I'm not sure whether I confused you or I convinced you. Thank you. Brilliant
Okay.
question.
So another question is how does emotion of employees is important in this
Question.
concept? Emotions of
Oh,
employees is
brilliant question again. The most important. You sell you when you say you, the holistic self is coming into an organization or to the work. It's an emotion you're bringing more than anything. Because if you happen to see the feelings and emotions, because that's when you understand the customers. You look at great products in life. They actually did. I think when I teach design thinking or when I speak out design, I say design thinking has been there for a long time. If you have to make a product called a book, you also thought how does the other person feel, how does the emotion gets connected. And I think emotion is the most important thing, and that's why we say humanity and respect. When I started also, I don't know whether I told you this, humanity and respect. Humanity is all about wellness, so connecting the emotions and the feelings, and that is not there, probably we are missing the whole scheme of things also. Thank you.
then there is one question: is personal and professional life same? I mean, we should uh, keep the both things same.
No, it is separate. You
It is
should
separate.
not bring in the professional self from personal this one. But what had happened is, I'll just be very realistic here. 2019, 17, 20, 22, and all those things, 21 till at least 21, what has happened is because of you are only sitting in this room or in this space and not talking to social human beings, including your own wife who will be sitting in the other room because of the COVID. What has happened is the work started intruding into our life. Now it's very difficult for us to
Mm,
separate it. That is why
mm,
professional and personal life has to be separated. Earlier, if you look at before the 2017-18, people definitely said this point is my space. But
mm,
now we don't have it. So it becomes very important for the person who is crafting the so-called work architecture or the career architecture. He has to strictly set the boundary line, personal and professional. But again, it's a personal choice and a personal call. I don't know whether I answered it right. Thank
mhm.
you.
No, I got it. Even it is so true. After this remote work, working in from home and working in from office, it has a different mindset. When we
Absolutely.
go to the office, it's a kind of productive. We have some objective.
Yes.
But I think in working from home, it's different. You
Absolutely.
have
Yes.
to create your own mindset and you have to set with all the system and everything.
In fact, I enjoy going to office. Sometimes my wife doesn't have to go that much. I'll be very honest. She just have to
Yes,
go 2 times.
yes.
I at least go 5 days because I enjoy going there. Unless and until there is a crisis, I take this one because
I
when
feel
I go
it's
there,
much more productive than
absolutely,
sitting in the office.
Marga, you just nailed it. And more than productivity, please understand, as an HR, we are human beings.
Yeah.
We are not here only to do Excel job.
Mm-hmm.
We are beyond that. So when you connect with people and when you talk, when you go for an water cooler conversations or go for an talk with them over a coffee and tea, they keep on telling you more. But over a
Mm-hmm.
video, I think there's a space. There is a some blocker. At least I have felt it so.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
We have another question from Hemba.
Ah,
Based on EVP design, what the opportunity does arise, some employees are frozen like deer in the headlight, unsure of how to make most of their time with this high profile individual. You want to make an impression, but not come off as overeager or out of touch. What should junior staff do to mix with the senior leader of the organization?
oh, are we a little
Yeah, I can. What I can do, I can write, copy this in the text box. You can just go through. It's a big question, actually.
okay? Okay, then I'll if you can just tell me that question. Oh, you put it there, Arga. I
No, no,
can.
it's in the third question. You can go through the third question in the
Okay.
Q&A box.
Okay. How do we create and benefit? Is that the question or okay? I'll go up. I am seeing many things. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The third question.
Third question. Okay. Okay. Let me
Yeah.
just go up. Sorry. Good morning. I've been from Nigeria. I was meeting before you internet accident. Okay. I'm advising to create learning application. Okay.
I am making
Exposure
it the
close
first
to
question.
to
The
pay.
first question. Now it's the first question. You can go to the top.
Maybe if you can just give me snippets, I'll try my best to answer, Arya. Or if
Yeah,
you want
that will
to
be
post it
better.
once again.
In the chat box, I am giving you the direct
Yes,
question.
yes.
Okay, that will
Kindly
be
post it.
better.
Yeah. Good question. I'll just try my best.
Yeah, I have given it.
Okay, sure. Based on EVP design, experience value proposition design, when the opportunity does arise, some employees are frozen like a deer in headlights, okay, unsure of how to make the most of their time. And these high profile individuals, you want to make an impression, but do not come often over anger or out of touch. What should juniors do? Very good. I think if my understanding is right, if not, kindly
I
question me.
mm,
So basically, please understand, when an opportunity comes up, employee needs to understand things, because please understand, a manager can only facilitate, can only coach, can only give you a picture. Push has to come intrinsically. The curiosity, the inquisitiveness, that kind of skills you only can do it. Because see, imagine manager has got many things to do it, but the whole thing is how does the employer see this opportunity and come up with set of questions, and where Manager becomes your enabler or facilitator to see the bigger picture. Manager helps you in seeing things better, and that's how you really harp on opportunity. So both the parties are equally this one, but 90% effort has to come from the employee. See the bigger picture, ask questions, see himself putting himself in that particular role or job, and seeing how does the whole thing move forward. So these set of things has to be done from the employee's part. Not sure if I answered
No,
or
no,
if
got
you're
it.
convinced. Okay.
So I have copied another question.
Sure.
It's a concern with AI and automation transformation. So
Very
you
good.
can answer the question. I have just provided you
Okay. With an
the
AI and
questions of.
automation transformation industries, how do you think technology will impact the way organizations define and communicate their employee value proposition? Fantastic question again. I was expecting that AI ML, but not to this extent. Fantastic. Phenomenally, you have put me in spot. That's the only thing I can tell you, but I'll still try my best to convince or confuse you. Uh, AI will not steal. I want all my leaders in this session to understand it will not steal three things from you. I don't know whether it will steal, but we can get into any kind of deliberation or this also later. It will not steal three things: imagination, curiosity, and empathy. Ice. Ice, it cannot steal from the humans. Because please understand, there was some person who was imagining why and why not. That's why you have Chat GPT and Google today. There was someone very curious in terms of asking, what happened? Why did it happen? Why cannot it happen? So you have curiosity in place. Empathy, humans. Systems are there. But if someone is, if RK or if I am having a pain in my leg, I cannot ask, RK cannot say, AI, please ask Arvind. RK himself has to come to me and ask. So empathy, curiosity, and imagination, you cannot steal it. And please understand, when you're talking about experience value proposition, I still have seen some of the case studies where people, some of the organizations, in spite of having AI, they still want people connect. If you have a doctor tomorrow, fully the so-called AI world, it will not be able to help you, right? You still would like to vouch for a doctor because a doctor has seen cases. Of course, yes, it will. Doctor has to now outcompete the so-called AI, but still the human touch and element is very. It cannot substitute. That's my point of view. I can be wrong. Thank you. Fantastic question.
There is one question: in a global and diverse workforce, how can companies tailor their employee value proposition to appeal different demographics?
Can you just repeat? I got little bit.
I am just copying the question again.
Sure.
That will be better. Wait.
You pasted.
No, I'm pasting it. Yeah, now I'm pasting.
Okay. In a diverse and global workforce, how can companies tailor their employee experience value proposition to appeal to different demographics while whoa, wow, fantastic question again. Very thought provoking. You have put me in spot. Most important, when I set experience value proposition, first, this one, what you would have seen is basically when you have to craft something, you need to do something called segmenting targeting. I'm sure you all would have remembered about that. In marketing, also, you say STP, segmenting, targeting, and positioning. The same logic applies here. Countries are different, cultures are different. So, on that basis, at least your EVP should be almost the same because please understand, when we are doing experience value proposition, it is standardization of the philosophy. KFC or a McD doesn't give a different flavor outside. They have tried their best, and that's their secret sauce. So my humble request to all my leaders is fantastic question is try maximum not to move or deviate, because if you happen to see everything what is there in that whole slide, just show it again. Yes. If you happen to see, this is something which separates us from the crowd. This one. What differentiates my organization is I have a deeper connection. My managers can feel it. And these things come out in those kind of great place to work and other things also. And if you're having your own kind of surveys which has been done to understand the engagement and experience of the organization, this comes out. So the philosophy is not for India. The philosophy is not for Nigeria. This is not for US. This is for not for any other organization. Countries. But as an organization, what is that which leads to talent attraction? What is that leads to someone saying that I want to join this organization? This is going to craft, or this is going to give me a great experience. I want to go to X hotel, not because only the food is good, the ambience, many factors are there. And this has to be something which has to be standardized. And my humble request is, please don't have different segment. Your EVP cannot have a lot of segmentations and this one. Then we are at a problem. We will not be able to manage it. That's my 2 cents.
Now, another question, like talent retention is the key to every organization.
Absolutely.
And what is the best approach to be used in retaining the talent without losing them to competitors?
Oh boy. Again, looks
With
like
all
I should have done my homework very well.
yes.
Brilliant set of questions. And it's a great experience learning. Super. Most important, most important, talent retention, it has to be done. Try to really understand what humans are all about. When someone is joining an organization, question is, why should they join your organization? Do a lot of thought process around the FGDs within internal employees, because they know your experience, whether you're rightly doing it or not. 90% understand the focus group discussions, interviews, surveys with your own employees, because they know what is happening inside work environment and the work culture. If they tell you the right things, you just need to re-engineer it and then go back to the external world if it is rightly perceived. Because retention only happens when you have given them what you promised, the experience value proposition, the value you get when you join your organization, and that has to be kept. That promise has to be met, and that only happens when you again, and this is where, and thank you for this question. One of the important aspects which I have learned is basically, I don't want to name the organizations. When someone is going for an interview, this organization, again, it's a great organization. When someone is going for an interview, they also measure how much time did he or she has to spend in the lobby. If someone has to wait for 1 hour, that means I don't have any value. I don't have any respect. Correct? So companies even monitor and measure that. Probably the last step which I told you, because everything has to be quantified. Because if I've been asked to wait for 1 hour, and Argya is also working for that organization, he also had a similar 1 or 2 hours waiting. We are not going to promote it. We are going to demote that company. And this is all part of the small element called the emotions, because emotions then gets into the so-called feelings. Feelings then get into the experience. So that is something called, during retention effort, try to really, really be human. Your managers, you as an HR should do the connect.
Okay, this will be the last question, because
No,
there are
ask
too
me
many
questions. As far you don't want to throw me out, I'm
no,
okay.
no.
This is fantastic.
Okay, another question is like one of the issue working remote, being in the office. How can HR balance their decision considering management and senior management are divided on what should be? And
Is there any way, Argy, you can just post it?
I'm posting it right away. I'm
Okay.
selecting it and posting it.
Someone has asked my mail ID. I'll just share it.
You can share it to everyone if there is an option.
Sure. I've done it
And
from my.
yeah,
Okay, that question, if I can have. Yeah, sure.
I'm
Okay. So great. In fact, I am, my whole brain is working today. Thanks to all my leaders. Okay. One of the issues working remote and being in office, how can HR balance that is fantastic. This has to, this is part of the whole culture aspect. Very important. The manager and the HR, it is not HR's business. CEO and the manager, the so-called manager should be knowing what is the work, what is the impact, and then take the discretion. But my humble request is, have something called equity and fairness. That is also part of the experience value proposition. Let's assume I am working for Argya, and Argya gives me all kind of flexibility, but he is not giving it to ex-colleague. Then definitely that ex-colleague, if it's a woman or a boy, they have all rights to ask Argya, what is that Arvind is bringing separate to the table? I might be his blue-eyed boy, but no. Most important thing is equity and fairness. You cannot have different kind of things. So as a leader, walk the talk and instill that whole thing into your culture, because your culture is something which people feel it through climate, which is happening on the ground. I don't know whether it met your set of answer. Okay, thank you.
So I would like to have another question. So uh, you can check this question,
Sure.
paste it.
Yeah.
In a situation,
In a
what are the
situation where the current are aging, yes, I understood. Okay, are aging and have significant experience, but the salaries are high, while the new ones have less experience, lower salaries. Okay, how will you, isn't it? Oh boy, limited. I think then that is a part of compensation session.
Hmm.
Probably if RG invites me next time, I'll answer that. But on a
We
very,
will have a compensation session.
yeah, yeah, but on a very, this one, I was fighting on this with my wife. I still remember last to last week. This kind of thing, right, does happen across the globe. It is not only for one country or in this one. For that reason, what we normally do is we start doing something called a market correction. And this is done by all organizations to ensure everything is rightly in this one. And it's very easy for me to say this, but takes humongous effort to balance it. Because market correction means market understands what is the current done. So that's where you have companies like AON, Mercer, Deloitte of the world does give us the compensation structure, and then we try to balance it. But one time you balance it, next time the next generation freshers or your so-called engineers comes, that imbalance kickstarts. So it's an what do you say, continuous iteration of this problem. I'm not sure
Yes.
whether I answered. It's awesome. All thanks goes to initiations and curators of this webinar. I am humbled. Thanks to Argya, and I should say Rashida, and a lot of people are there behind this minds. I should thank you and all my leaders who have been part of this session. Humbled and
Thank,
honored.
thank you, sir, for giving us this insightful webinar, and thank you for letting us know what is actually happening around the globe. So I would like to take few minutes and give some overview about UniAthena. Uh, so thank you everyone for joining this webinar and posting some interesting question out of the box questions. It's very insightful. And so is the webinar. We have got some insights from the webinar. It's very interesting. And before proceeding, I would like to give some information that you can check this webinar out in the YouTube channel. And if in case you face any kind of questions, you can definitely reach out to us. And also, the certificate that you will be receiving is free. You will be getting it in the registered email ID. Now, let us give some insight from for UniAthena. So first of all, UniAthena is an online platform where it provides all kind of courses, masters, short courses, and doctorates. So here we have free learning short courses, which almost 2 million global users are there. So the journey ahead, the top recommendations for this courses, based on this course, you can definitely check executive diploma in strategic leader and HR practice in organization, then diploma in international human resource management. Then we have another course, mastering human resource management, and we have diploma in human resource operations. Then we have basics in human resource management, where you will be getting a basics of human resource, mastering in IHRM, about you will be knowing about organization and recruitment. Then essentials of international human resource management. Now, if you want to have a career on human resource management, then you should be checking the short courses from UniAthena. We have 600, more than 600 online courses, short courses, which is actually free. So there is no cost, no catch. You just go through the website, check the courses, do some, uh, go through the videos, and then you will be getting certificates. We have the professional certificates from the university. It's not like uh, not created like from UniAthena. It's very much relevant. Uh, so you can go through the questions, check from their domains. We have diverse subjects. Now we have the short courses based on 5 levels, beginners to advanced. So you can check that out. And the learning is basically bite size. So videos are very short, very much bite size. It won't take much of your data. It's very bite size lesson. It won't take much of your data. Now, before going further, it is broken down into 3 sessions. The first is the basics of master's courses, which is basically 4 to 6 hours. It will give you the basic concepts, and it's basically for the newcomer who want to just to know about that field. So if you want to know basic about HR, you can go through the basics of human resource management. Our partner body is Cambridge International Qualification. That's a university from Cambridge. Now, if you are already familiar with the course but want to delve into a deeper concept, so you can check the essentials, which is 6 to 9 hours. Basically, it will give you the essential concept, principles, theories, and who will be doing, who have some understanding on the courses but want to have the skills, want to master about the basics. They can basically do these courses. So the partnering bodies are Cambridge International Qualifications and Acacia University. And last is mastering courses, which is a 1 week course. If you want to be really good at that course, you can definitely check this courses. Who will be doing this course, basically who are already want to have some expertise on that field. That's and the partnering body is Acacia University. And then we have diploma. It is basically from 1 week to 2 weeks. If you want to get certified, if you want to have some practical knowledge, you can check this diploma courses. It will basically upskill your knowledge. A certification body is from UniAthena. There will be executive diploma. It is a elaborated version of diploma courses. It is for professionals who is going to have some leadership skill without interrupting their career. You can also check this video out. The certification body is from UniAthena, so you will get the certificate from UniAthena itself. So the certificate partners are Cambridge International Qualification. It is from UK, and we have Acacia University from US. So you can check their website as well. You can and get to know their courses. And we have some learners. They have spoken about us. You can also check their testimonial from the UniAthena website. And thank you for joining this webinar. Thank you, sir, for giving us this insight. We will definitely have another session on something specific like compensation, as we have got many questions from that end, and so many questions from technology and hierarchy and everything. So we can definitely come up with something specific and uh, get some knowledge based on the real world scenario. Thank you, sir, for joining
Thank you.
and
Good
coming up.
and thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for
Thank you
participating
all.
in this.
Bye. Happy weekend.